So, hi everybody, this is my submission for Creative Project 1 Interpreting Things Fall Apart. And originally I chose to do an essay, but since that point I've decided to do a speech instead because I feel like I will be able to express my thoughts better when I articulate myself. And so, yeah, and thank you for listening. So, today I want to explore the theme of internal conflict and cultural change in Chichua Achebe's Things Fall Apart. So, through the father-son relationship between Okonkwo and Nwoye, Achebe reveals a deeper struggle between individuals as they navigate navigate a society on the verge of transformation. This conflict, which can be both personal and cultural, sort of lets us see into the broader challenges faced by post-colonial societies. And to begin, let's consider Okonkwo. He's the novel's protagonist, and it is a tragedy for Okonkwo. And Okonkwo represents the traditional values of Igbo society, which are strength, masculinity, and being traditional, and having sort of that commitment to the traditional values and customs. And his internal conflict arises from his attempt to resist the changes brought on by the colonialism that evolves throughout the novel, and he sees that colonialism as a threat to his identity and a threat to the Igbo identity. And to depict this, Achebe writes, Okonkwo, and I quote, Okonkwo was not a man to be easily defeated by troubles and difficulties. And this is on page 24. This quote highlights how Okonkwo's stubborn nature, it shows Okonkwo's stubborn nature, but it also foreshadows the inevitable downfall that accompanies his resistance to change. And yeah, that is a bit of foreshadowing, as we all know Okonkwo, does have a pretty tragic downfall. And in many ways, Okonkwo's fear is rooted in his relationship with his father, whose name is Unoka, and that father was perceived to be weak and was a failure essentially, and that left a very deep scar and that influenced Okonkwo's psyche. And that led Okonkwo to have a disdain for his father and a disdain for his weakness and failure, and that fueled him and made him almost obsessed with proving to be strong, masculine, and not a failure to both his household and his community. And Achebe illustrates this tension or highlights it when he says, Okonkwo's fear, and I quote, sorry, Okonkwo's fear was greater than these. It was not external, but lay deep within himself. It was the fear of himself, lest he should be found to resemble his father, and this is on page 13. This quote shows how, that profound inner conflict between Okonkwo and himself, right? The self versus the self, I guess, is what it would be called. And it shows how Okonkwo is so extremely determined to avoid being seen as weak that he ends up clinging to like this rigid, very traditional, outdated, almost understanding of strength, and that ultimately isolates him from those he loves, including his family and especially his son Nwoye. And to take a look more at Nwoye, who's Okonkwo's son, as we mentioned, and Nwoye represents the other side of this cultural and this sort of internal conflict. So Nwoye is drawn to these new post-colonial ideas, or these colonial ideas, and he's especially sort of enamored with the ideas introduced by the Christian missionaries. And Nwoye feels stifled by the expectations of traditional masculinity in the Igbo society and ones that his father especially likes. And Achebe gives us a glimpse into Nwoye's internal struggle when he writes, and I quote, Nwoye was already becoming something in spite of himself. He was developing into a sad-faced youth. And this was on page 67. So Nwoye's quiet sort of, divergence, his sort of rebellion toward his father and his father's authority, and against the traditions that his father embodied, symbolizes the sort of broader cultural shift that was happening in Igbo society, right? We could see how Nwoye started drifting apart from those traditional values, and that's sort of how that was like sort of reflective of Igbo society as a whole that was sort of losing its own identity as all these colonial forces sort of influenced it. And this internal conflict reflects sort of a deeper desire within Nwoye's own identity in a rapidly changing world, and that's just one that Okonkwo just at the end just couldn't comprehend or even accept. And to sort of marry these two ideas, Achebe skillfully uses the father-son relationship to depict the larger post-colonial themes at play. So the tension between Okonkwo and Nwoye mirrors the clash between tradition and modernity in the wake of colonialism. So what that means is Okonkwo's resistance to change in many ways sort of represents the older generation's struggle to preserve their customs and values, but on the other hand, Nwoye's sort of willingness to embrace Christianity reflects the younger generation's inclination toward sort of assimilating and adapting these new influences. And Achebe's portrayal of these characters sort of opens the door for us to reflect on how colonialism disrupts not only societies, but also the relationships and identities within the individuals of the societies. And he did an amazing job of sort of depicting that between Nwoye, Okonkwo and his son Nwoye. So in this way, Things Fall Apart is a post-colonial text that exposes the, I guess you could call it a painful reality of cultural disintegration, right? It really is tragic to watch. And it shows how colonial forces impose new values and beliefs into the community, and it causes fractures both at, the broader societal level, and within families, and within the individuals, sort of going back to that theme of internal conflict. And Okonkwo's eventual downfall can be seen as a symbol of the demise of the old order, right? His death symbolizes the death of Igbo society, not just, a one-dimensional, one person dies. It reflects a greater thing. And to conclude, Achebe uses the father-son relationship between Okonkwo and Nwoye to explore the theme of internal conflict as well as the cultural change. Through their struggles, we can see the effects of colonialism in individuals, within sociological interactions, as well as in entire communities. And Things Fall Apart not only tells the story of one man's personal tragedy, but it also sort of reflects and sheds light on the broader consequences of cultural transformation in post-colonial societies. And so that's what I have for all of you guys tonight. Thank you for listening, and yeah, good night. Thank you.